when you went, what it felt like when you went to bed, what it looked like in the paper, and what it looks like now. Can you give us a little bit of color?
Yeah, it doesn't feel the same, Dylan. I think that the difference is that in the intervening period, we had a period of conservative government where the American people learned what it was like to live under a fully conservative nation, and everything got worse. And so I think what's different is the opinion of the Republicans are much worse and much more negative today than they were in 1994. And so I think, the real question for me is, will the Republicans really be able to take advantage of what have been clear Democratic missteps? So far, I don't think either party is where they want to be going these fall elections.
Yeah, Doug, Simon brings up an interesting point. If you look at the popularity of Democrats in polling, it continues to fall like a rock. At the same time, when you look at the popularity of Republicans, the Republicans are not winning any of the people that are abandoning the Democrats. How do you interpret the political reality for Democrats and Republicans as Americans continue to abandon both?
Well, I think the political reality is, number one, that both Democratic and Republican incumbents are very unpopular at this point in time, and this is an anti-incumbent sentiment that's quite strong. The second is that the key electoral segment is the independents who have fled the Republicans in 2006, 2008, and now are running back as fast as they can, not because Republicans are all that appealing to them, but largely because they're deeply unhappy with what's gone on under Democratic control of the Congress and the White House. So I think there's an enormous amount of repair to be done on the Democratic side, but that doesn't mean the Republicans are out of the woods.
Yeah, Doug, if you were to accept a version of my premise that money is leaving America, it is not coming into America, and that
you want me to accept your version of the premise?
No, I mean, listen, I'm saying we know money's leaving, not coming in, but I'm saying if you were to accept my version of the premise, the fact that we have not dealt with China, the fact that we have too big to fail banks, the fact that we have employer-based health care and an insurance monopoly, that those are among the root causes of the actual economic dysfunction of this country. Do you think either political party has the balls, excuse my language, to engage the formidable institutions that are banks, the healthcare institutions, and all the rest of it?
Well, I certainly hope so, because I think the key to getting this right at this point is to stop the quick fix mentality, much of which is driven by short political cycles, and engage in what would be deeply committed long-term growth policies in the United States. And we have an economy that's growing. It's been growing for nearly a year, but it's growing at a pathetically slow pace, and it offers no hope to the millions of people who are unemployed. And I think to become ruthlessly committed to growth, to provide people with jobs, and not pretend that somehow a tax credit here or a program there is going to be a panacea, is the number one priority for this nation.
Yes. Simon, do you feel like either political party has the audacity to engage, again, a long list of systems from 1950 that may have made sense then, but it has been 60 years and a lot of things have changed?
But Dylan, I think you have to look at the president's latest proposals in a much broader context. If you look at what the Democrats have done the last couple of years, financial services reform, health care reform.
I don't accept either of those as reform, though. You know that.
I know you know that, and I'm a big fan of yours, and it's great to be here.
Carry on. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, and I understand, but I think that in terms of the effort undertaken and the recognition that there's systemic, serious problems facing the country, the Democrats have at least made significant efforts to try to address this in a systemic, structural way. We may disagree about whether or not the end result is going to get us where we want to get to, but I think there's a recognition in the Democratic Party that there has to be a whole new economy, a whole new economic strategy for the 21st century. The strategy we had in the 20th century isn't going to work anymore, and I think the Democrats have done an awful lot to get there. The contrast is the current Republican leadership and the way that they're.
Can we stop there, though, just because it's a lot to chew on? As far as the Democrats are concerned, if we accept your appraisal, why do you think they're in as bad a political situation as they are? Go ahead.
Sure, because I think as much as the Democrats understood that there were structural problems that needed to be addressed, the solutions they came up with haven't worked the way that they wanted. I think it's pretty clear. I think the Democrats believed at this point there would be recovery and that people would be better off than they were. And in part, I think there was a miscalculation in the early days of the Obama administration about what had happened in the 8 years previous to the recession. We have had 10 years of no wage and income growth in the United States. That's never happened before in all of our history. And I think that the party that gets it right over the next few years is going to be the one, as Doug said, has got a long-term strategy that is focused on the challenge of the 21st century, that's going to raise the boats for all people, not just for the people at the top, Dylan, as you talk about all the time. And I don't think either political party's there yet. I think the Democrats are a lot closer than the Republicans, and they better make that case in the next 2 months, or it's going to be an unhappy fall
let me ask you
this November.
Go ahead, Doug.
If I could just say, I mean, number one, I mean, if you look at any of the evidence, the Democrats have no hope for the fall. I mean, historically, the electorate that makes their decisions about what they think are the big issues in the 3 to 6 months in advance.
Fair enough.
They set their perceptions. The big issues are the economy. It's baked in the cake. Spending, it's baked in the cake. Accountability in Washington, baked in the cake. So I don't think there's much that can be done in the near term. In terms of the unpopularity of their policies, I think the fundamental problem that the Democrats don't appreciate is that with stimulus, any president would have acted. And so I don't think the president gets much credit for doing something that any president would have done something. They did something that was appallingly poorly constructed and then took their eye off the ball, and instead of caring about whether the job showed up, went and did a health care reform that is deeply unpopular, went and did a financial market reform that is both deeply unpopular and highly questionable in its effectiveness. They're not winning votes by doing those things.
The problem, however, and I think this is my view of why the Republicans' polling numbers have not improved as the Democrats' polling numbers have deteriorated rapidly, is having had so many of both parties on this show over the past year on health care, on financial reform, as abysmal as I found a lot of the Democrats' ideas to be in terms of not addressing leverage, not addressing the insurance monopoly, not addressing the employer-based health care system, not addressing the incentive to take money out of the country, all this nonsense. The Republicans, almost every time, had no better alternative or had a worse alternative, Doug. In other words, are we setting ourselves up to quit drinking by beginning to snort cocaine in November in addition to drinking?
Well, I think the key for Republicans, for conservatives, comes in really three forms. Number one, it was, let's get back to principles. The Republicans betrayed a lot of their principles during the time they're in power, and I think that's clear. Number two, let's get away from the politics of personalities. Let's stop talking about a Sarah Palin all the time, and let's have, again, a debate about the ideas. What will the conservative movement present to the American people as the solutions that those people deserve for their long-term well-being? And number three, find someone who can give compelling voice to those ideas and have that be the standard bearer.
But do you think, Doug, that's where we are?
Unfortunately, what interrupted that is the Democrats ruled so poorly that the Republicans are now back in play quickly, and they're trying to do that faster than may be possible.
Can I pick up on that, Dylan, from what Doug was saying? Is that what he's saying is the Republican Party is not ready to govern, and that what you saw with John Boehner 2 weeks ago, after listening to every Republican come on your show in the last couple of months and talk about spending and deficits is the big problem facing the country, John Boehner proposed a plan that would increase the deficit by $4 trillion over the next 10 years and do nothing about spending at all. And the level of hypocrisy, lying, whatever the words are you want to use, where they're saying we're going to, the number one job of the Republican Party is take on deficits and spending, and the leader of the Republican Party comes out with something that does neither, right? So I think to your point, I think to what Doug was saying, and I want to agree with him, is that these guys aren't ready yet to come back into power. And the tragedy is that the last time they were in power, right, we had historic deficits, we saw, wages and incomes go down, we saw the economy go to hell, they didn't do anything about it, and now these same guys are going to be put back into power during enormously difficult economic times. So Simon, not something I think the country should be excited about.
And Simon, I don't disagree with that necessarily, other than the fact I think the Democrats have proven themselves equally unqualified to govern, which is why we find ourselves having this conversation.
I don't agree with you, Dylan, on that one, but that's okay. Yeah.
Let me take a crack at what Doug was saying. What Doug was saying was that Simon, who is a very skilled Washington-based spinmeister, is doing a very skilled Washington-based spin. The American people have decided Republicans are ready to govern, and that's what matters.
How do you figure that? As far as I can tell, the polls just show that they don't want Democrats. There's nothing in the polls that shows they want Republicans. It's just that the political system gives us no choice. Believe me, I guarantee you if there was an against line in the polls and you could actually force both political parties to improve the quality of their candidates by tossing people in the primaries, you think the John Boehner would be leading the Republican charge in November?
I think I understand your point, but I don't see a Dylan Ratigan for Speaker movement either. So they're prepared to put the Republicans in power.
They don't have a choice.
They've got you.
No, I'm not running for office. Who's going to run? What do you mean they got me? They can watch my TV show. That's about it.
I think the serious parts of this conversation should be that A, Republicans know the challenge that faces them, B, they will and can step up, and that will be the ultimate test, or it will be a very short-lived victory.
Listen, a real enjoyable first conversation back from my vacation, actually, guys. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Welcome back, Dylan.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Simon. Really, truly.
Okay.
Coming up here on the Dylan Ratigan Show, I won't be leading much, but I'll be